Keeping with the theme of horror games this October, let's take a look at 15 free horror games that you can play on Steam right now. I'll even throw in 2 bonus games at the end of the video. The first game on the list is Blameless. It's a first-person puzzle game where the player takes on the role of a freelance architect. You accept a job working your interior design magic at a home that's in very rough shape. After meeting with the homeowner, this dream job suddenly takes a turn for the worse. The creepy atmosphere combined with the puzzle elements of this game keep you guessing on what's actually happening and how you ended up in this scenario. Blameless is a relatively short experience. Less than an hour if it takes you a while to solve the puzzles, and probably less than 30 minutes if you happen to figure them out pretty quickly. Regardless of how long it takes you, the surprise ending is something that will have you wishing there was more story so you could understand the origins of this mystery. The next game on the list is Dark Deception. It's another relatively short experience and is actually part of a longer episodic adventure. The base game, which is essentially the first chapter, is free, while the remaining chapters come in at $7 US or the full series for $20. Dark Deception is a story-driven, first-person maze horror game. You initially meet with Bierce, who seems to know all of the things in your life that you regret. In order to supposedly live a new life, you have to help her get the pieces to a powerful ring, and after completing that task, she claims she will help you. You walk through a mysterious hotel, and in order to collect the first piece of the ring, you run through the hallways collecting soul shards, or rather, fragments of human spirits that are scattered around. You gobble them up almost like Pac-Man does with power pellets, while also avoiding the monsters in the halls. Of all the games on the list, I'd argue this one is definitely at the top of the list when it comes to its near AAA graphics. Let's keep things rolling with Fingerbones. Fingerbones is a game that doesn't try to scare you with jump scares or the typical enemies you'd expect to see in a horror game. Rather, it focuses on the psychological aspects of being alone, or at least semi-alone. You explore a mysterious and abandoned bunker that paints a picture of some truly horrific events that took place. Through notes and puzzles, you start to unlock the rather disturbing way in which the downfall of a man occurred in this very bunker. The visuals, the music, and the atmosphere really pull you into the narrative and push you to uncover the rest of this story. The nature of the story is quite dark and mature in nature, so I would recommend this probably not be played by kids. Up next is Missing Hiker. Missing Hiker is yet another short horror game in which you play the role of a character looking for your brother Ethan. Ethan went missing while hiking near the Red Mountain and didn't come back. You decide to take a drive to the mountain and go looking for him yourself. The beginning of the game isn't necessarily scary, but as you progress through this experience, that starts to change. It becomes very clear that something is going on here, and despite the warnings, you decide to carry on. If searching the woods wasn't tense enough, this next game throws you into a full-on fight for survival. No More Room in Hell is a multiplayer experience that's a lot like Left 4 Dead, except much slower pace and more focused on survival than it is shooting hordes of zombies. It takes inspiration from George Romero's Of the Dead series and puts you in an environment where diseases ravage the world, but the cause of the outbreak is unknown. There are 2 different game modes: survival, where you defend and maintain your shelter in hopes of being extracted, or objective-based modes where you complete objectives to win the game. Ammo and weapons are limited, so you have to choose carefully about what you want to take with you and how you use those items effectively. The game also features dynamic maps, so each playthrough feels different than the last. You can play this game with up to 8 friends, and while you can play this solo on a couple of the maps, it's not recommended since the difficulty will be extremely high. Now let's strip things down to pure atmosphere. Minimalist, raw, and surprisingly haunting. September 1999 is a found footage game that places you in a small home. You play as a person holding a camcorder and explore the house through the lens of the camera. The game isn't inherently scary, but there is definitely a gruesome story unfolding as you explore. The graphics in this game are awesome. For the most part, it looks pretty accurate to what you would see on an actual VHS tape, although as you get close to some items in the game, the effect isn't quite as realistic. Given that this is the shortest experience on the list, coming in at roughly 6 minutes, I don't want to show too much gameplay here, so you'll have to go check it out yourself. Speaking of found footage games, the next one on our list is The Complex Found Footage. While this one doesn't feel like you're looking through a camcorder, it does feel like what you would imagine a GoPro in the 80s would look like. You walk around exploring a seemingly abandoned facility, wondering what lurks around each corner. The facility looks to be a lot of the same smoker's cough yellow, and just when you turn a corner and expect there to be more of it, it changes. The visuals in this game are great, and the paranoia you get from walking through the facility is next level. If you enjoy that classic indie horror vibe with puzzles and panic, this one is going to make you feel right at home. In The Designer's Curse, you wake up in what feels like a dungeon. You solve puzzles and attempt to solve the mystery of what this place is while working your way through this horror adventure. But be on the lookout, as there are enemies wandering the halls and they won't take kindly to your presence. Something interesting about this game is that it was released by the developer when they were just 15 years old. Since then, they've actually released The Designer's Curse Chapter 2 Forgotten Horrors. That version of the game is $5 on Steam, and even though it says Chapter 2, you don't actually have to have played this one in order to enjoy the second. But since it's free, it's almost like a demo to see if you're interested in this style of game and whether or not you'd want to play the second chapter. And also it's good, so I'd recommend checking it out. Let's take things in a completely unique direction, because this game watches you. Literally. Vigil is probably the most interesting game on the list in terms of its core game mechanic. Something is lurking in the darkness, and the only thing that stops it from coming after you is your eyes. Vigil uses your webcam to track your eye movements. You use your eyes to open doors within the facility and also stop the monster from chasing you. For those of you who are Doctor Who fans, it's kind of like the Weeping Angels. As long as you're looking at it, it can't hurt you. So go to your job, dispose of boxes, and don't get caught. Ready for something bigger? Because Dead Frontier 2 is massive compared to the rest. It's a survival MMO where you scavenge for supplies and improve your skills, all while getting rid of infected along the way. You uncover audio and written accounts of the horrors that are plaguing the world while also trying to help other survivors. You can play it alone, privately with a party, or as an MMO. Complete quests, get some awesome gear, and build up your stash. There are always more zombies on the way. After surviving the apocalypse, it's time for a story with a darker emotional edge. The Night is Long is a first-person horror game about a grieving man who enters an abandoned mansion to face his past. As you will quickly find out, you are not alone in this adventure. The narrative of this horror story is definitely one of the top ones on the list, and the game capitalizes on the jump scare moments by pulling you along in its chilling atmosphere. Relive your story, solve puzzles, and uncover the truth about the mansion. Moving from creepy manor to creepy hole in the ground, Ravenous has an amazing story where you play as a child who's trapped in a monster's basement. As you explore this very creepy facility with doll parts everywhere, you solve puzzles to rescue your little sister who is also trapped there. You find letters of family members exploring their grief, and while attempting to navigate your feelings, you're also trying to focus on the task at hand. Just don't get caught. This next one may look calm on the surface, but trust me, things go downhill fast. Fragments of Dread: False Haven is meant to be an episodic psychological horror series, with each episode telling a different story. Given that this episode just released on October 7th of 2025, it's hard to tell when you might actually see the next episode, but that shouldn't stop you from playing this one. In the game, you play as a young boy named Luca, who ends up having a pretty terrifying experience that makes him question everything. If psychological horror is your thing, this next game dives deep into the human mind. Silent Resonance explores the story of a person battling multiple personalities and a severe case of schizophrenia. You quickly lose control of yourself and misjudge reality as you attempt to fight through your delusions. The art style in this game definitely adds to the horror elements and makes it a very enjoyable experience. Let's bring the tension back to creepy mode with an animatronic friend you definitely don't want to meet. Stanley Says is a horror game that takes place in an abandoned nursery from 2001. I guess I'm getting old now because 2001 doesn't feel like that long ago, but I guess we're just out here abandoning buildings in the 2000s. Anyway, Stanley is an animatronic who you don't want catching up with you. So explore the abandoned nursery, solve the puzzles, uncover the lore, and try to make your escape. If you can. After exploring that eerie nursery, it's time to shift gears to our first bonus game with something short, mysterious, and equally unsettling. Redshift, not to be confused with the $4 game Redshift, is a narrative horror game where you play as a field technician sent out by your employer to restore power to an old military relay in the middle of nowhere. It should be noted that this game is in early access and is extremely short, almost to the point that right now it's basically a tech demo. But there are 2 endings to complete, and given that the game is in early access, hopefully this means we'll see more story in the future. And finally, our second bonus game, a true classic in free horror. I won't go into too much detail here since I just uploaded a review of this game, but Cry of Fear has an amazing story, scary enemies, and an atmosphere that ensures it lives up to its name. It probably provides the most amount of gameplay compared to other games on the list, aside from maybe Dead Frontier 2. So if you want more information on this game, I'll add a link to the video in the pinned comment. Or you can click the video link on your screen, because the next game might be your new favorite.